All right, everybody, let's get started so we can get you out of here on time. All right. Well, good evening. Welcome back. Thank you for being here. I know it's been a wet day, and it's great that you're all here with us. We have great presentations tonight. We're going to have a presentation by our finance team and also personnel. So I don't want to take any more time, but I just want to remind everyone that when you have questions, to please wait for the mic to come your way, because for the recording, it's important that the audio comes through with the microphone. So with further ado, I turn it over to our finance team for their presentation.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Onyx Jones, and I am the Interim Finance Director in Technology Services as well. And I'm happy to be here. I'm actually a retired annuitant, and I am assisting the City of West Hollywood during their recruitment process for a new position. Hi. Yes. We're happy you're here. So usually finance, whenever I go do a finance presentation, sometimes numbers can be a little bit boring. So tonight we're going to have a little fun, right? We're going to have a little excitement. We're going to try to make it a little less boring for you, okay? So we're going to talk about budget, accounting, and procurement this evening. So let me introduce to you some wonderful people that I have working with me on this presentation. So first we have Melissa Lindley. She's our budget officer. And there's Melissa. And then we have Nicole McClinton, who, all right. Give it to her. Nicole works in our city clerk division. She's over procurement. And then we have Karen Barang, who is our accounting manager. Yay, Karen. And then also with us in the audience, who helped us put this presentation together, we have our newest addition to the finance team, Stephen Peloso. Yes, he's our senior accountant. And then we have Annie Ruiz, who is our revenue manager. All right, so we're going to get started this evening. So first, we're going to talk about the fiscal process that goes on behind city projects. But we're going to talk about it with our dream project, which is totally imaginary, okay? So this is the imaginary story of Glitter Paws Park, where we're going to dream, we're going to budget, and build, all right? So we're going to take you along on a financial journey. And it all started with this dream of having a civic project. We're going to build Glitter Paws Park. So it's going to be sparkling, inclusive, eco-friendly, of course, cat-themed park with rainbow walkways, solar-powered cat towers, and hydration stations for the pets and for humans. So who wouldn't want a cute little Glitter Paws Park? Dog park, there you go. I'm with you. All right, so this is just our imaginary journey, okay? So the first step is, before we build it, we've got a budget. And so this evening, I have for you Melissa Lindley, who's going to talk about our budget process.
All right. Thank you, Onyx. Good evening, everyone. So I'm Melissa Lindley. I'm the city's budget officer, and I'm happy to get into the budget with you this evening. Before a new project like Glitter Paws Park can begin, the project must be incorporated into the City Council approved work plan and budget. So why do we prepare a budget? The budget is a policy document. This is what it typically looks like. It's quite large. You're welcome to look at it later in the evening. It guides the city's work and spending for each fiscal year. It's a tool that communicates how public funds are being used in a transparent way that residents in the city can easily access. It ensures we are in compliance with requirements for general law cities in the state of California, and it supports long-term fiscal planning with the inclusion of historical actual financial information and trends, a forecast projecting estimated revenues and expenses in future years, and a 5-year capital plan. So who's involved in the budgeting process? Well, we have many partners that participate. The City Council establishes priorities and adopts the budget. The city manager and budget team manage the budget process, prepare base budgets, analyze departments' requests for new budget, and submit the city manager recommended budget to council for review and approval. Departments and divisions are responsible for reviewing their budgets and their work plans each year. They might request new funding to support or enhance existing services or programs, or to implement proposed new initiatives. The Finance and Human Resources departments play key roles in establishing revenue and personnel budgets. And last but not least, you, the community, provide information on a regular basis through participation in city council meetings, boards and commission meetings, community events, this particular program, and direct communication from residents, businesses, and user groups. There are many fiscal policies that we must adhere to when developing the budget, and a few important policies are highlighted here. The operating budget must be balanced, which means that the annual revenues must equal or exceed the annual expenditures. Long-term financing should be used for capital projects. Capital investments require large investments, and they provide a benefit over a long period of time. Long-term financing, such as bonds, provide the funding upfront and are paid back over many years, similar to a mortgage that you might have on a home. Additionally, the city must maintain reserves to ensure sufficient funds are available in the event of an emergency. The current policy requires reserves at least 35% of the general fund budget, and proprietary funds, such as the sewer, solid waste, or street maintenance funds, which levy charges on users, must be self-supporting. Last but not least, we must maintain a long-range fiscal perspective to ensure the city's ongoing fiscal sustainability. So let's get into the budget process. Every year we develop a 2-year operating budget and a 5-year capital plan. We're currently in the second year of the fiscal year 25 and 26 2-year budget. Development of the budget is guided by council and community input, the city's strategic plan, and departmental work plans. The budget process is continuous with overlapping phases, and this diagram provides a high-level summary of the key phases. So let's start on the upper left, and we'll move clockwise around the diagram. The needs assessment takes into consideration input received from all sources to identify and prioritize needs. We also consider potential new policies and develop strategies to achieve the city's goals while ensuring fiscal sustainability. Budget development begins with the current budget as a starting place, as it reflects a continuation of current operations. And then consideration is given to potential adjustments and enhancements while keeping in mind the resources available to fund them. The budget adoption process involves several public meetings with both the City Council Finance and Budget Subcommittee and the full City Council, concluding with the budget adoption in June of each year. And then the budget is implemented as of July 1st each year, which is the beginning of the city's fiscal year. Throughout the year, monitoring and feedback is taking place with ongoing review of budget versus actual revenues and expenditures. And we return to City Council in February or March of each year to provide a mid-year status update and propose budget changes if needed. So where does the money come from? The city maintains many funds. However, the general fund is what we typically focus on, as it accounts for the majority of the city budget. The general fund is the primary source of unrestricted revenues and pays for most of the city programs, services, and day-to-day operations. The FY26 general fund budget includes $167.2 million in anticipated revenues, as they're shown in this pie chart with percentages by major category. And you'll notice that more than 50% of general fund revenues come from taxes, with sales tax being the highest revenue generator in recent years. So what do the revenues support? The FY26 general fund budget is balanced with $162 million in approved spending authority, shown in this pie chart with the percentages by category. About a third of the budget is for wages and benefits, which includes costs for regular staff, temporary employees, and their associated benefits. And we are a contract city, so about half of the general fund budget is for contract services. And those include social services contracts, public safety services, so we contract with the county for both sheriff and fire services, and other contracts for goods and services, including things like janitorial services or professional consultants. The capital expenditures that we budget in the general fund are primarily to support the maintenance of capital improvement projects. While the one-time cost related to building out a capital improvement project is funded through a special purpose fund outside of the general fund budget. Finally, other financing uses includes transfers between funds and payments for debt service obligations, such as the bond financing that we discussed before that is typically used to fund long-term capital projects. So that concludes the budget presentation, and I'll now hand it over to Nicole.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the applause. Good to see you again. I'm Nicole McClinton. I work for the city clerk's office. We are in charge of contracts, insurance, permits, insurance for all kinds of stuff. Anyway, let's talk about Glitter Paws Park, right? So now that we've been funded from the budget office, how do we build our Glitter Paws Park? Let's talk about how the city selects the contractors. And just so you know, and we'll get to it in the end, I'm going to give you the rules, right? There are always exceptions to the rules as well, and we'll hit that at the end. That's something that the city manager wanted me to be very clear about, just to make sure that you all know. Let's see. Can we hire relatives? Can I just go and hire my sister to work for the city? Because, you know, I can't. I can't? Oh, man. You're right. I can't hire my sister. I can't give her a contract because that's a conflict of interest. So before we go any further, there's something that I want to say. And everything about building Glitter Paws Park and getting our contracts in place to build Glitter Paws Park, they're all shielded in the fact that we have a fiduciary duty to the city, to protect the public's funds to the city. And so everything we do is to protect the city and to protect public funds. So first, in order to begin, we need to go to bid. These are the rules, not the exceptions, okay? So the bidding is required by the municipal code for goods and like fungible goods types things. Services are a separate thing, but I'll deal with that in a second. It promotes competition. It ensures that we get the best value for your money, for our money. And it prevents favoritism, like I can't give the contract to my sister, even though, she might really like it. So the procurement process, let's start at the beginning. We define the need. So as Onyx said earlier, the need is we need to build, I just blanked. Glitter Paws Park, yeah. We need to build Glitter Paws Park. And there are a whole bunch of things that are needed for Glitter Paws Park. We need construction, we need bars, and what are the things that you just said we're getting for them? The feeding stations, the watering stations, I'm a dog person, so I'm not, there you go, kitty condos, the whole thing. So we're going to have a different bid for each of those items so that we can get the best services for the city, the best value for the city. We're going to solicit the bids. We use a system called Planet Bids. That gets to the broadest section of people so that we know that we've put it out there to a large section of the population that can respond, and that we know that when we get responses, we get the best value. So a lot of times we'll get like 5, 10 for one contract. And basically we're looking at whether they are responsive to what we need, whether they meet the city's requirements, how long have they been in business, do they have all of their business licenses, do they have have they been in legal proceedings prior to this? Anything that can turn it good or bad, we're going to decide. We review what they provide to us, so they give us the proposals. So let's say for Glitter Paws Park, we have the kiddie condos, right? And we're gonna say that they are pre-built condos, okay? They're prefab, so we're not building them from scratch. So we can look at a bunch of different people that provide prefab kiddie condos. And from that, we can see, okay, which ones have meet all of our basic requirements. And okay, is it gonna be a 2-story condo? Is it gonna be a 3-story kiddie condo? And then we look at like products the same so that we know in the end we're getting the best value. Okay, I'm not gonna go into a whole bunch of other things. I'm just gonna stick with the kiddie condo. How about that? Okay, so once we select who is going to provide, well, we found a provider that gives us a 3-story kiddie condo, and it has a built-in watering station. Wow, that's like more than we even wanted, but it gives us that, and it was less than everybody else, so that's who we're gonna go with. So at that point, I'm gonna go through and I'm going to work with our staff who are the subject matter experts. In this case, for the kiddie condos, I would say it's going to be Public Works. Yeah, how about that? Kiddie condo, in-person condo, person condo, Public Works, maybe. And so they work with the vendor, make sure that the scope is correct, what was detailed in the proposal that was submitted in response to our RFP. And then we get the city's template, which has all of the requirements that the city needs. We have indemnification language to make sure that the city is covered by the contractor that we're contracting with. We have our insurance language. We have to make sure that we receive insurance certificates from the vendor. So the people providing the kiddie condos, you know, they're going to bring the kiddie condos on site, so they have to have auto insurance, because what if they get into a car accident on the way? They have to have their general liability, because what happens if the kiddie condo breaks, falls out, hurts a kitty has a hurt paw, and you know, who's gonna pay for that, you know? So to protect the city, so the city doesn't have to pay for that, we make sure that the contractor has the insurance to cover it. And there are other liabilities as well. So once we go ahead and we get that contract in place, then we get the insurance and indemnification, everything is all in place. We have to, if it's over 50,000 for kiddie condos, 3-story kiddie condos, I'm guessing it's gonna be over 50,000, maybe like 78,000, maybe. Glitter Paws Park has enough kiddie condos for, I'd say, what, 15, 20 kitties? So we're gonna need a lot of kiddie condos for them to play in. So we have to bring it to council, and then the city council will approve the contract, and then we go to the next financial situation where we have to get a purchase order and all of that stuff. That's not me, I'm with the city clerk's office. That is going to be Karen, so I will hold off on that until Karen gets up here. Let's see, if there are any issues, like we decided that the kiddie condos aren't going to fit if they are over 3 stories, or if they're 2 stories, it's not going to look right because there's going to be a whole bunch of space, then we have to negotiate those terms in the contract, and that's what's in the scope of services. Okay, I said the exceptions before. Okay, so here are the exceptions, and it looks like a lot. This is just the municipal code, you guys. Okay, so the municipal code, like I said earlier, requires us to go to bid for goods, for fungible goods, right? It doesn't require it for services. But what did I say? We have a fiduciary duty. So we still need to find the best value for the city. So we're still going to bid. It may not be a formal bid. It could be an informal bid. It could be, we get requests for qualifications from different people, things like that for services. So for Glitter Paws Park, let's say that we have to get certified by, I don't know this, I'm just making stuff up. So if anybody knows, you can chime in. But we have to get certified by, sure, there you go. Paw Patrol. Paw Patrol needs to review it and all that stuff. Those are services. So we're going to do, how about we do an RFP? We're going to send this out for requests for proposals just to see what people have, or we'll do a request for qualifications. What kind of patrols do you have at other kiddie parks, And so once we get that back, and then we decide we're going to go with Paw Patrol, and then we negotiate the contract the same way that we did for the fungible goods. But that's an exception to the rule for bids. It's services. Services are not covered by the municipal code. So we can do a formal bid, we can do an informal bid, we can look at other cities and see if they already did a bid, and we may piggyback onto their bid processes so we don't have to do it. So that's another way. Another exception is emergency circumstances. So if we have, like in January this year, it seems like 10 years ago, the fires, right? And we have to have immediate services. We don't need to go to bid if it's an immediate need due to emergency services, due to natural disasters, anything like that. And then there are other circumstances, like if we need to have interoperability with neighboring cities, for instance, like we went with the LA County Sheriff's Office, right? We don't have to go to bid for that, or with LA County Fire, we don't have to go to bid for that either. So there are other exceptions, but And next, after we have gotten into the contracts to build and furnish everything in Glitter Paws Park, it's accounting's job. So thank you, and if you have any questions, we're here afterwards.
Thank you, Nicole, and good evening, everyone. I'm Karen Baring. I'm the manager at the General Accounting Division. So I'll be talking about the accounting and audit. So now that our park is built, we'll follow the money trail. What happens after that? So the accounting division of the city processes all the financial transactions, and it's thousands of transactions. It includes paying our employees, which were hired by our human resources division that will talk after us, and also paying our vendors and contractors that Nicole has mentioned, selected through competitive bidding. So I don't want to talk about exceptions, through competitive bidding. So, and after that, all of these revenues and expenditures are being recorded in our financial system. And after that, this thick annual comprehensive financial report is prepared. So this is the summary of all the yearly transactions that the city has. So since this is so thick, we will present to you the key, some of the key highlights, and specifically the general fund, which is as Melissa has mentioned, the main operating account of the city. And the health of an organization is always measured by the balance of the general fund. So let's look first on the budget to actual comparisons of the general fund. So this page shows that the actual revenues exceeded final budget estimates in most categories, and the city collected more resources than projected across all key revenue streams. And this reflects positive economic conditions and strong revenue performance. So, and then the next slide will talk about the expenditures. So the expenditures of the general fund, you will see that all city departments has operated within the approved budget appropriations. And also, actual expenditures were below the final budget in each function. It reflects continued fiscal discipline and strong budget management. And as I mentioned, the general fund's health is the measure of an organization's general health. So this page will show the general fund changes to fund balance in a 5-year trend. And it is, the fund balance is divided into 4 major categories. The non-spendable is the portion that cannot be spent, as the name implies, such as deposits and I forgot my, and prepaids. Yeah. And the next category is the committed at 83 million. This is the portion of the fund balance that is subject to self-imposed restrictions in spending by the highest decision-making authority, the City Council. And this balance includes the emergency reserve at 35% of the general fund budget, more like the rainy day funds of the city. So the assigned fund balance at 112 million is the balance that is restricted for specific purposes. And by resolution, the City Council has designated the Director of Finance and Technology as the official to determine the assigned fund balance. And the largest part of this assigned is the amount set aside for capital projects at 75 million. And the remaining is the unassigned, which will be used for any other purposes that is not in the other 3 categories. Okay, so let me go to the next slide. I want to make sure I mention this, that over the 5-year fiscal years, you could see that the fund balance has grown steadily, and the allocations reflect strategic use of resources for key priorities such as reserves and capital projects, and that the city maintains a healthy fund balance levels. And why, you would wonder, why does the city has a healthy general fund balance? And that is because there's the revenue trends have increased year to year. This is the slide that will show the revenue trends of the general fund from comparison year to year, fiscal year 23 versus fiscal year 2024. And it will show revenues increased compared to prior fiscal year, and that the growth are observed across multiple key revenues. We just have one area that the city will closely monitor, and that is the sales tax. It decreased slightly, and that's relating to economic conditions. And the revenue trend shows positive year-to-year trend, and it reflects strong local economic activity and effective revenue management. So a steady recovery and growth helps fund projects like Glitter Paws Park, our main topic today. So now that we have shown you this reports. Let's see who checks the city. So our city are being monitored by different agencies. So the first one is every year, our external auditors perform an examination of our books to make sure that the records are recorded properly. I mean, the transactions are recorded properly. And then our grantors too send their own auditors to check the city. For example, the Metro, they send their auditors to check the transportation-related grants to make sure that the expenditures are being spent based on the grant agreements. And last but not the least, when we receive federal grants, it may be not that big now, but the federal grants, when we receive it, we are subject to single audit. And who else? Who else monitors the city? There are other agencies also that we submit reports and monitors our debt. So that is, for example, the S&P Global Ratings. They have issued the city a AAA credit rating, which is the highest, because the city has the healthy fund balance and well-managed revenue streams. And strong rating means lower borrowing cost and more city projects. At the end of the year, once the auditors are finished, they will, this again will be prepared, and the city will apply for the prestigious Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting. The budget also applies for Distinguished Budget Presentation Award, and this is the sample. And the city has continuously received these awards for the past 30 years. Yeah, and then, so I think that ends my presentation. If you, for more information and you don't want this thick one, this is available at our website at www.weho.org under the financials. And the budget is also available there. And with that, I think it ends my presentation, and I will turn you over again to Onyx for our closing remarks for our section. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. All right. Well, this completes our journey of the imaginary Glitter Paws Park. We thank you for entertaining our vision. This is where dreams, dollars, and accountability meet. So we are now open for any questions that you may have. Yes, let's start over to the right, and we'll work our way over.
We have a mic. We're bringing it around. Okay, I have a couple questions here. Who is our external auditor, and are those reports available on the city website?
The city website.
Yes, currently our city auditors are Vasquez and Company. We rotate our auditors every 3 years. We again do a competitive bidding, or every 5 years, with 2-year extension, we do a competitive bidding for our external auditors.
Okay, thank you. Outside of the city council process, do department heads go out into the community to facilitate budget meetings or community needs? And that's done every couple of years?
It's on. Oh, great. So we have specific budget meetings during each budget process, which are more, they're part of the Finance and Budget Subcommittee that's held in City Council facilities, as well as the meetings with City Council. But throughout the year, we are collecting information that we're hearing. So department heads may be involved in community meetings, events, other things that are out in the public that are not necessarily labeled budget meetings, but we are taking that feedback from boards and commissions, all sorts of sources that they participate in.
Okay, thank you. And then technology falls, and this is my last one. Outside of you all do an amazing job, we have a AAA credit rating and a some money set aside for rainy days. So that is not an easy feat when we look over to our neighbors in LA. So thank you for that. And you also manage the technology department under the finance. There's no technology presentation today. Is that later, or will we have technology information?
They have a separate presentation.
Perfect. Thank you.
We had a question here, and then we'll move that way.
Thank you. I'm curious if these charts, like slide 21, 22, are those pulled from the actual data?
Yes, they can be found in the ACFR. Do you want to give them the page numbers?
Is there further explanation into what these charges to appropriations actually mean? Like I see developer participation was estimated as 0 and then actual over 300K, or like what intergovernmental means that had a pretty large variance.
So towards the front of every financial statement that cities produce, we're required to include what's called an MD&A, and it's a management and discussion analysis. That section gives you a narrative of this is how the city's doing, and it gives you a breakdown of each of those statements and the activity that's in the general fund. Now, if you do have a specific question, because I always get excited when people have specific questions, you can feel free to email finance, and then we can get you those answers. Because, unfortunately, we don't get a lot of people that dive deep into the numbers. So we welcome those questions.
I know you mentioned that capital outlay was a very large part of your considerations, and I see that the difference here between the original budget of $5 million versus final that jumped up to over 18. But then the actual was under 4. I'm definitely curious.
What page is she on?
Page 43.
Slide 22, yeah.
So I think we're looking at page 43, which is the capital outlay actual of 4 million, and the budget is 18 million. Is that the question?
I think it's the slide one before that. It's the slide budget to actuals comparison. Yeah. So that last line of capital outlay where it goes from around 5 to 18.6 down to 3.7.
Yes. Yeah, this is exactly what it is in page 43 of the annual financial report. What it is the city continuously budget the capital outlay, and the one spent for this year is only 3.8, but it continues year to year. It's a multi-year. So this 18 million will be rolled over to the following year until the project is finished.
And you will typically see a large increase like that when there are significant projects that are multi-year that were approved by council during the year. So at the start of the budget, we had identified projects that we thought we were going to do, but as the year goes on and we may get grant money, we may get funding for large projects that we can accomplish. So they go to council for approval, and then once they're approved, they get budgeted in that year. And that money carries over from year to year, because as you see, there was only $3 million in expenditures. So maybe the projects just got started, and so that budget then gets carried over to the next year so that we can maintain the balance from the beginning of the project to the close of the project, which could last 1, 2, or 3 years, depending on the size of the project.
Thank you. That makes a lot more sense.
Hi, just a quick question regarding the process. Regarding procurement and contract review, slide 16, they were talking about the approval, review, and ensure, oversee, participate in. I was just wondering when does, I'm assuming it's the Planning Commission that's involved with this at all, or is it involved?
So during the contracting process, it depends on what type of project you're talking about. So if we're talking about Glitter Paws Park, then yeah, the Planning Commission would have to be involved, but there also might be involvement from other commissions as well, if there are going to be other things at the park. We have, is it 16 commissions and committees in this city. So sometimes they overlap, and we do, and council does rely on their opinions very much.
No, thank you, because that is also another opportunity for the public to participate. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I am just curious to ask you all, what is the city project you've been involved in that you're really proud of, and why? And is there anything in the works that you're really excited for?
Want to start, Karen?
I always start. Hello. Yeah. So I think I've been with the city for 12 years, and I've seen. I think I'm most specifically proud of this building, because this is the city has issued bonds in order to construct this building, and it took, I think, 5 years to build this building, and it benefits everybody.
Okay, now I can't do it. Hi. So as you know, every single contract in the city comes across my desk. So I'm not really a part of any individual project, but there are some things that are pretty exciting. So we just finished our social services contracts for the next 2 years, or 3 years, sorry, for the next 3 years. And that consisted of going to bid, right? We had a whole bid process working with the social services division, and then meeting with each of the bidders and all of that, and then taking it to council. It went to different commissions and all that. Then council had a say in it, got to weigh in, got to say, oh, we want this organization to have more money. We want this organization, we don't really need this as much. Oh, and by the way, because of the political activity, we need more money from legal services, right? So we just finished the round with 33 contracts for 3 years each, and I'm very proud of that.
That's okay. Hi, so I've been with the city for just under 2 years, and I oversaw the development of the 2-year budget on the 5-year capital plan, which started within a few months of my joining the city. So at the same time, during that same process, we went out for a bond issuance to refinance existing bonds and get new funding for what we have is a quite aggressive capital program. So I'm looking forward to doing the next 2-year budget process soon, which will be a little more streamlined, since I've been through it once before, and knowing that we have that funding available to support some pretty exciting upcoming projects. We're finishing the AIDS Monument. We're working on a future city playhouse. There's just a lot of exciting projects happening in the city, so I'm excited to be part of that.
And I am the newest to the group. I started in July of this year, but already I have had the privilege of working with Annie in the revenue division, and we were able to roll out a new online service for business licensing. And so now businesses don't have to come into the office. They can actually go through the application process and get approval and pay their business license all online. And we're also rolling out that ability for multiple revenues now to be paid online. And we also will be utilizing, the company is HDL. They've done work with various cities across the state, as well as they have a relationship with the city providing sales tax review. And so they also are very helpful in collecting revenues that some of our businesses maybe have overlooked. So they do a good job of knocking on doors and getting those payments. And so it's really exciting to have this service, more so for the community, because it makes it easy for them to want to do business with the city, because people they don't have time. They're so busy. They don't have time to come into the office and ask a lot of questions. They want to be able to go online and get everything taken care of. So that's something that we're doing. A major project that's also going on citywide is updating the city's general ledger system so that the processes that are used to get contracts approved, to get purchase orders approved, to get checks cut are going to be far more automated with this new general ledger system. So that's an exciting feat, but it will require every department in the city to participate in it. So it's definitely going to be a unified effort for that.
I'm curious about the budget surplus, how it relates interdepartmentally. So for example, like say the communications department spends 95% of their budget in a year and they're fiscally responsible and don't spend all 100%. What happens to that 5%? Is that available to them the next fiscal year? Is there any incentive to save that money to work on a project the next year, or is that just gone? How does that work?
So at this time, the money just gets rolled back into the general fund and is available for future use. The departments do not receive a direct benefit from it, other than the fact that the city has money available to support new initiatives or programs as they come forward and are needed. There has been in the past a program where some money saved, but a lot of cities have moved away from that model.
And of course, we will mention that some of that budget, as you see the savings, although it wasn't spent, it's what we call encumbered, because it's a large contract for that Glitter Paws Park, right? That's a big project. We may not spend all the money in year one. And so we do have processes in place where that money that was not spent, that savings is carried over into the next year, and it becomes a part of the amended budget, which is why sometimes you'll see an original budget and then you see amended budget. Some of that is actually from projects that did not get completed in the prior year, and they get added on to the next year's budget. So not all of it goes away. Departments can stake their claim on, hey, we need money for these commitments that we've made. And so that money is pushed to the next year.
Do you find you get more proposals in May? Sorry. Do you find that in May or June you get far more proposals to use that last remaining bit of budget?
Well, they do have incentive to try to get those projects complete before year end and get those invoices in, because obviously they want to take advantage of the budget that they have in the current year. So we do get, legitimate expenses that come in at year end.
Thank you.
Hey there, thank you so much for the presentation. Quick question, so in the RFP process and the Planet Bids process, does the city take into consideration or give preferential treatment to West Hollywood businesses first? Or is it something that just goes out through Planet Bids and whoever bids?
Yes, actually that is a part of the municipal code. It's not part of the exception, so it's not on my slide. However, there is a preference for West Hollywood businesses.
My question was just about the basic general health of that general fund, in comparison to other cities. For example, in the Great Depression, the city of Kalamazoo, I believe, had a surplus of $50,000, and we're still able to pay all of the municipalities. So, in that kind of regard, what is our health?
Go ahead, Karen.
Okay. try to answer that in an accounting side. So our general fund balance being positive compared to other cities, because our city is a contract city, so usually compared to other cities that has the police and fire, comparatively the city which is a contract city are more in better shape. And what else? I think that's all I can say. Do you want to add something, Onyx?
Yeah, I would say that as Karen highlighted on let's go to our fund balance slide. And when you see in the restricted amount, as she indicated, there is a reserve policy that exists, right? So in case of an emergency or if we do have some revenues that are threatened, or the incident with COVID not too long ago. So that money is there for that purpose, that council could go to those funds if needed. It is like having a savings account sitting there in the event of. And so I would say that yes, West Hollywood is in a very good position because it exceeds the minimum reserve policy. It does operate on a fiscally sound basis. As you saw, the revenues exceeded expenditures in the previous year. And so those are always positive aspects. But I will say, as Karen also mentioned, we noticed that our sales tax revenue has decreased in this year, and we project it's going to go down a little bit this year. And that is because of the economy and things that are going on. So we're being very diligent, and we have a meeting scheduled with HDL to find out. HDL looks at sales tax across the entire state, and so they give us insight on that so that we can react if we need to. But I would say in general that the city is in a very good position because they have the fund balance that they do have.
So it's sort of a follow-up to that. Am I still? Okay. So even though we're really in health financially in terms of our budget, do we have, I think you did mention something. We do have a rainy fund, right? Okay, cool. I was just curious. I forgot.
Yes. Go ahead.
Yeah, and one thing that's really important to keep in mind is doesn't work very well. Our credit rating is also
She has.
There we go. Sometimes it seems like city budgets are different than our own personal budgets, but just like when you apply for credit, they look at your reserves, how much cash you have. The reason we have really good bond rating too is because we do have very healthy reserves. And, during the pandemic, we had to tap into that reserve, and we were able to recoup that once, we came out of the pandemic. But if we didn't have that, sometimes people say, oh, the city has all this money, why do you have to have all that money? Well, it's because we don't know. Look, right now, as you know, the economy is going through some major challenges. We rely, you saw one of our biggest sources of income is hotel transient occupancy tax. Well, international travel is down. So if people are not coming to our hotels, that's impacting that. If people are not going out to eat and to bars and to purchase, that also impacts, the money that's coming into the city. And if you've been keeping an eye on what's happening with our neighboring cities, the city of Los Angeles has a major budget shortfall, and Santa Monica just declared a financial crisis. So, we've been really lucky, but through judicious, oversight of our funds so that we can have those kinds of reserves. So all of you as residents of the city that want to know that we as we are good custodians of the city's money, that we keep doing that because it helps us not only do well during good times, but also fare during times of difficulty. And as you know, the federal government has also been clawing back a lot of money from some of the nonprofit organizations, and we as a city have a major commitment to work with our service providers, and we don't know what the future holds, and as you know, the administration keeps looking at some of these cuts. So it's just really important that we are very conservative in our approach to spending money so that we can weather a storm if necessary.
Hi, I actually had a quick question, just as a regular peon walking around the streets of West Hollywood. As businesses open and close kind of at an alarming rate, how does that affect your budget discussions, and does that change any allocations? Does that do anything for your department in a way?
Either way. Like everything, it's something that we definitely need to monitor. It has an effect on the business tax revenues, and so we'll, are keeping tabs on that on a regular basis. There have also been impacts to the revenues as City Council makes decisions to help support businesses, and there's been was a temporary waiver of the business license tax in the prior year, which affected our revenues, but was aimed at helping support the businesses to hopefully ensure that they would thrive. Ultimately that benefits the community, and it also benefits the finances of the city.
You'll also notice in the budget document, we do a forecast. So we do anticipate, with the economic changes and things, we look at mostly conservative estimates of moving forward. So we look at within the next 5 years, what does it look like, and will we need to make cuts in certain areas if we anticipate potential downturn in some of the significant revenues, right? Which, as you see on the screen there, property taxes, sales tax, those are some of the major players. Sometimes some of the other revenue sources, they kind of ebb and flow, so we do look at trends, because as you indicated with businesses, just as you see a lot of them close, we also get a lot of new activity with new businesses coming in, and so we look at that more on a trend basis than a one-by-one base, because if we see that we're trending pretty steadily, then we can be, kind of moderate with our estimates. But if we start to see a trend like sales tax, that's a red flag for us. We are going to need to be conservative when we estimate that budget moving forward.
I have one more thing. So also, in response to that, I don't know if you noticed, but the city also contracts with organizations that help local businesses. So we contract with Emerald Village for the cannabis organizations. We contract with the Chamber of Commerce to provide education for local businesses as well. So that's another way that we help small businesses in the city.
Sorry, I actually had another question that you brought up, Emerald Village. Is there going to be any changes that are going to be coming out of the woodwork with, because I believe Newsom just signed the sales tax reduction for cannabis businesses or the licensures or something like that? Does that affect city revenue?
Stay tuned.
Okay. More.
Both the state and the city cannabis tax.
Thank you.
One more question. In regards to us being a contract city, I know that typically there's a large financial consideration when it comes to liability, especially in regards to law enforcement. And I'm curious, with us being a contract city, if someone sues based on something that happens with an interaction with a sheriff deputy, if that affects our budget or if that goes back to the county.
So as a contract city, all the contract cities that contract for services with LA County sheriffs, they pool the resources, and so litigation has increased over the last couple of years, which increases the costs that we pay for sheriffs. But when you compare that to what our neighboring city in Beverly Hills pays for the Beverly Hills Police Department, and you're only seeing salary and wages, you don't see retirement, you don't see workers' comp payments, you don't see the unfunded PERS costs, which is our public employees retirement system. So there is a true advantage to contracting with LA County Sheriff and Fire to keep costs reduced. Onyx and I were talking before this started because we both came from full service cities where 55 to 60% of your general fund budget was only for police and fire. And so that leaves a very small percentage for all the other services. So think about the amount of social services in those 33 contracts that we provided. We wouldn't be able to do that with the revenue that the city generates. We couldn't do those things. So yes, we do. It's lumped into a pool of all the cities that contract with them. And yeah, so we have council members that are appointed to subcommittees with LA County that sit on those litigation committees and hear what's happening with those lawsuits. So we do stay informed about what's going on.
We just wanted to let you know that we usually take a break around this time. We want to be fair to our next team that have a very important and interesting presentation for all of you. So we wanted to ask you, do you want to skip the break and move on to our next presentation? Or you want to take a quick break? If you have any more questions, we have business cards. You have the contact information for everyone here today. So please do not hesitate to connect with us. That's what we're here for, to answer all of your questions. What's that? A quick 5 minutes? Oh.
All right. Good evening, everybody. This is the HR part of the presentation for tonight. I'm Raylan Napper, the Human Resources Manager for the City of West Hollywood. Yeah, woo!
And I'm Sienna Leung. I am the Human Resources Supervisor with the City of West Hollywood. I've been here for 6.5 years.
I've been here, we're approaching 2.5 now. But thank you. Before here, I was with the City of Los Angeles for just over 23 years. And Sienna's been some other places too.
Yeah, so I was with the City of Beverly Hills for 6.5 years before I came here. So those are the two public sectors, and before that I was in the private sector.
So before we jump in, just want to say, if you have questions along the way, shout them out. We don't have to wait till the end. We can kind of have dialogue about stuff as we're going through it, okay? All right.
Yes, so I want to ask all of you of your most memorable experience or memory with HR. When was the last time you went to Human Resources? Was it to ask them a question, or is it you need help with benefits, or you have a complaint about another coworker stole your lunch in the fridge? So whatever it is, Human Resources is here for you for the good times and the bad times.
All right, so tonight we'll talk about the purpose of HR, HR in the public sector, kind of setting the context of our work. We'll talk about our work in the framework of the employee life cycle, and we'll end with a pretty fun activity. All right, so what is the purpose of HR? Why are we here? Why do we exist? We're a support to the organization, and we really serve as a bridge between management and the employees. And we also provide support and guidance to employees through all stages and events of the employee life cycle. So, you know, marriage, kids, divorce, illness, disability, you know, the good times, the bad times, saving for retirement and retiring, you know, all the things. We're there, we're often the ones who know all the details that you come to, you tell the story to, and we're there to support and walk with employees through whatever they're going through. We also serve as a business partner, leader, and change agent because we can provide policies and procedures, organizational design, and consistency for how things are managed with the workforce. And of course, we want to hire the best talent to serve the community's needs. So we're really focused on that. And as we talk about HR, we have to set the context a little bit for you. So we can't talk about HR without, you know, explaining all the extra things that come with being HR in the public sector. And when you combine civil service, collective bargaining, administrative regulations, and a classification system, you can start to see how we have more requirements and regulations than the private sector does. So we'll talk about each four of those elements in a little more detail now. So talking about civil service, if you've ever wondered why it takes so long to hire government employees or why it's so hard to fire them, well, this explains a little bit of that. So before civil service was around, government jobs were given on the basis of political patronage. And that was called the spoils system. And government employees could be let go because of political reasons as well. And then with civil service reforms, government employees then have to be hired on the basis of merit. So we have to go through process and testing and things like that. And of course, can't be terminated for political reasons, can only be terminated for cause. So also, we're in California, so the California state constitution grants a property right to public employees and a property interest in continued employment. And the US Constitution says the government, any level, can't take away property without due process. So that's why we can only terminate employees for cause and after due process. And we'll talk a little bit later what due process means. Did you know that a US president had to be shot and assassinated before the spoils system was changed to civil service? Anybody know that? Yeah. President Garfield was shot by a slightly deranged job seeker who didn't get the job, so then shot the president. President died from the infection from the bullet, not instantly from the bullet, though. So, yeah. All right, so then we layer on collective bargaining. And if you've ever wondered, why do public employees have such great benefits, et cetera? Well, here's part of the answer to that, collective bargaining. So, yeah, so that collective bargaining refers to the process that unions and employers negotiate for the terms and conditions of employment for the employees they represent. We don't negotiate individually. When we hire someone, we don't say, hey, where do you want to start? What's your salary? What are your benefits, et cetera? No, we have a salary scale that's everyone for this class gets paid this way. We have these benefits for these groups. Everything's negotiated. The negotiation results in a contract that we call a Memorandum of Understanding, or MOU, and that's what memorializes the terms and conditions for that bargaining unit or that union. And then when issues arise, like conflicts or disagreements, we, the city and management, work through the designated representatives of employees, the bargaining units, the unions, to resolve those conflicts. And when management wants to change something, if it is changing the terms and conditions of employment, we can't unilaterally do that. We have to go to the unions, we have to negotiate, bargain, etc. And if there's not agreement, then we have to go through impasse proceedings. So even just kind of making what you think might be a quick change, if it's touching terms and conditions, there's a whole other process to go through. But if it's not touching those terms and conditions, then it's just meet and consult. And so we talk about the impacts to the employees and kind of go from there. So a little lower bar, don't have to agree on things there. And did you know, another fun fact, 95% of our workforce is represented by a union. Anyone here been a member of a union? All right, yeah. I heard the clap earlier. I was like, okay, yeah, you know the benefits. All right, and then we do have some employee groups that are not represented by unions, and so that would be our temporary employees. Think seasonal recreation folks coming in for the summer, et cetera, and also our executives at the top. And so those employees, those two groups are also at will. They are not protected by civil service and can be fired for any reason as long as it's not a discriminatory one. All right.
Okay, so next we're going to talk about administrative regulations. So there are also city policies that applies to everyone, represented or not, and those are set through administrative regulations. Let's take a look at how they work. So policy is set by the city executive authority, which is the city manager. These policies set by city managers that guide how we handle everyday processes across the organization. You can think of it as a city rule books on how we operate. So for example, we have policy AR that explain how we recruit and hire employees, rules about how we hire non-union or temporary workers, technology and email uses, steps in the disciplinary process, or how we prevent discrimination, retaliation, and harassment. Do you know that the administrative regulations are reviewed and updated regularly to make sure they reflect the current laws and best practices? It is one of the ways that HR helps keep the organization compliant and consistent. And next, we have the classification system. So earlier I mentioned about AR, which are the policy that tells us how we do things, and the classification system tells who does what and how those roles fit together. So the classification, think of it as an organization framework that groups jobs based on what they do, the level of responsibilities, and the qualification that they have. So the key elements of classification system include job categories. So they group by the type of work. So they can be administrative work, technical work, or professional type of work. They can be separated by levels and grades as to show the responsibility and complexity. So you can hear the job title like assistant planner, and then become associate planner, and then become senior planner. The job description outlines the skills and abilities and qualification of the job, and also the compensation structure and the pay range that ties to each job class to fairness and transparency. So the goal is to make sure that people are paid fairly and know what's expected and have clear path to grow within the organization. So did you know that there are 150 active classification in the city?
And do you remember how many employees we have? Almost. We're up to 278 full-time regular employees, yeah. But 150 classifications? No. So we're working on that. We're doing a classification and compensation study right now to try to get that down, yeah. We want broader classifications where people can kind of move around and we don't have to be so specific about each position. All right, moving on to the employee life cycle. So HR supports employees throughout their entire career with the city, and that's essentially what we call the employee life cycle. And I just wanted to note that diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility are central to every stage and every touch point that we're involved in. And at the center of it all is also the city's core values of respect and innovation. We practice that by trying to improve our processes and the employee experience and our services.
Yes, as you see this slide, this is our employee life cycle. So let's start at the beginning of the employee cycle, which is recruitment and selection. This is how we attract, evaluate, and hire the best people for the city. So our MOU and AR, as I mentioned earlier, the Memorandum of Understanding, Administrative Regulations, our process is guided by them. Which set the rules how we recruit fairly and consistently. So for recruitment, we utilize an online applicant tracking system that managed by HR, that we post jobs on there, we collect application, and we review them. And they will also use that to communicate with our candidates. So our normal job posting usually open internally for 5 days and externally for 14 days. And we also make an effort to reach underrepresented groups because we think that diversity inclusion is a very important big part of our hiring value. So when the jobs are open, the candidate needs to apply the job directly. So it is not like they can just put a resume in our system and hope for the best. So they need to specifically apply for the job that they are looking for. If the position is not posted, for the position that are interested not posted, they can submit a job interest card so they can be notified when the job's open. So they will get an email notification when it comes in. So once the application comes in, HR will review them and to make sure that our review policy process stay fair. We implemented a personal identifiable information. We call it the PII redaction system. So to remove personal information like names and addresses before sending the application to the hiring manager. So we send it to them. We sometimes call it the blind application. So they only see the materials there. So instead of using to prevent any bias. So the next step is the selection process. So once we have a qualified pool, we move it to the selection phase. So we actually have two types of selection process, in-house and external. The city rule requires we open the position in-house first to give our employee chances to grow, to promote, and stay within the organization. If no one is selected internally, then we'll open the position externally. So we also do most of the interview like we do interviews in the private sector, but with interview panels, and we have 2 rounds normally. So the first round is the civil service interview. So when candidates are scored and ranked based on merit. And the second round focuses on the fit, where the hiring manager and the team determine who is the best match for the team, and that one results in the job offer. So next we move on to, after we finish the selection process, once the selected finalists, we move to the background phase. So we usually we complete a reference check to verify the employment for information they provide on the applications to make sure it's accurate and honest, so they're the right background and right person for the role. That to predict the success of the applicant comparing to their experience and competencies required by the job. We also conduct a DOJ life scan fingerprinting. It's just important to make sure that people, like, they handle money or they drive as a part of their job or work directly with the public and with children, that we, sort out their background. And lastly, one of my favorite program on the recruitment selection is our internship program. So it's a great entry point for students to get to know about the city and knows how the public sector operates. And a fun fact that our very current city manager, Derek Wilson, actually started as an intern with the city of West Hollywood. And he never left. So he's been staying here for over 20-something years. So do you know that over the last 365 days, over the last year, we received 4,207 applications, and HR read every single one of them. Yeah, so we have a small and mighty team, but we do a lot of reading. So props to our HR team. So now move on to the onboard side. So now we found the right person to hire. The next step is onboard, to bring them to the organization and to set them up for success. So onboarding is making people feel, the person feel welcome, helping them to understand our culture, giving them the tool they need so they can do their job well. It's also a key moment to start building engagement and connection on day one. So here at the city, we modernize our onboarding system. We use all our paperwork, our new hire paperwork, done through online automated system. It saves time and also reduce paper waste. Our new hires also assigned a lot of new hire training so they can get familiar with important topics such as workplace conduct, safety, city policies. So before they get the ground running, they understand the rules of the city. So during onboarding, we introduce them to the departments, divisions, our benefits, our core values, so they immediately feel part of our team. So in short, onboarding is more than just filling out the form. It's about chances to make a great first impression for their first day with the city. So if they're feeling informed, connected, or welcome, they're more likely to engage and stay within the organization long term. And that's exactly what we want. We want to set them for success.
All right, after we've onboarded an employee, then it's time to develop them. And this is really something that continues throughout their time with the city. Everyone comes in with skills, but we want you to continue to build and improve your skills. So employee development programs like training, conferences, special projects, stretch assignments, coaching, career counseling help ensure that employees have the tools and skills to master their current job, helps prepare them for advancement, and really importantly, helps ensure that the city can stay adaptable and flex and meet the challenges that come our way, the new challenges and different ways of doing things. Oh, and did you know that we have 2 learning management systems, but in one alone, we offer over 1,400 on-demand courses for employees.
So now we recruit and onboard great people. So the next challenge is just as important. How do we keep them? Retention is about creating an environment where employees feel valued, supported, and motivated to stay. So at the city, we approach retention through a mix of growth, recognition, wellness, and safety support to show that we care about them, about their well-being and development, their development and their well-being. We know that people will stay where they can grow and thrive. So where we focus on professional development, and Lourdes mentioned, we have leadership training, we have a great tuition reimbursement program that people really take advantage of. We make sure people know the work matters. We have events that celebrates, the employees, such as coming up, we have a Halloween celebration. So each department dress up, and we have a big fun celebration showing off our costume. Can't wait to see. We also have annual employee recognition awards. So we celebrate career milestones. We also vote for the Employee of the Year. And we have one sitting right there, Jader, who is a former Employee of the Year with the city. So we also have a workplace policy and protection program. So these are guardrails to help us to keep workplace fair and consistent and safe for everyone. So this policy is to guide us to protect our employees and guide how we respond when issues arise. And human resources, we have a lot of other things to do. We administrate our human resources or the employee benefits. So that includes not just health benefits, we have the retirement, their health insurance, their deferred compensation system, workers' compensation, and employee assistance programs called the EAP. So these benefits are support employee not just at work, but in overall well-being, physically, financially, and emotionally. So when an employee knows their rights, benefit, and safety protection, they can focus to do their best work and feel confident that the city has their back. So ultimately, retention is not just about keeping people, it's to keep them engaged and fulfilled.
All right, so the employee life cycle can conclude in several different ways. Sometimes employees resign. It's usually to take a higher level position somewhere else. An employee's time at the city can also end as a result of discipline through termination. And just to, talk a little bit about the disciplinary process and that due process I mentioned earlier. When behavior is observed, or there are performance problems, or something's reported, we of course investigate, but that's how discipline is typically triggered. And we have conduct standards for employees, higher bar for supervisors and above. And we practice progressive discipline, which means that the severity of discipline matches what happened. But if lower level things are repeated, then we can escalate the discipline. So maybe it's a notice to correct, then a suspension, and then a discharge if it's just not being corrected. And because we're a public employer, anytime we discipline an employee, meaning suspension or discharge, we have to exercise due process. And there's due process before we take the action, which requires notice and an opportunity for the employee to respond, make sure the employer gets all the information before taking the action. And then after we take the action, the employee has appeal rights, which typically through our MOU go through arbitration, where the city has to prove that the employee did what they were accused of, and that demonstrate that the penalty is appropriate. So there's the steps before, the steps after to protect that interest in continued employment. And then, of course, the process is confidential, so employees have a right to privacy in a lot of things in their employment, and including, disciplinary matters. And so that's why the city, and all employers, but definitely the city, we can't comment on employees' disciplinary history, ongoing investigations, and a number of other things. And that's true even if the employee has commented publicly about those matters. We can't respond. And then finally, arguably, I would say the best way to end your city career is through retirement. And so we're part of CalPERS, the Public Employee employee retirement system here in California, and so we help employees make that transition to retirement as well. All right, y'all. We are at the end of our content and just want to wrap up with an activity. So we took inspiration from a real game called Fun Employed, and we have created 3 fake jobs where you get to decide which of the 2 candidates is going to get the job. So who's best suited? This is truly the merit system here. And although we're having some fun, every hiring decision is so important, especially for a small organization like West Hollywood. So it's really important to make sure we get the right person in the right role. All right, so our first job is, the animations aren't working. All right, bounty hunter. And so, candidate A has grit, handlebar mustache, and handcuffs. Okay. Candidate B has jacked forearms, loose morals, and a minivan. So who are you? Everyone for A, raise your hand. Who's hiring A? All right. Oh, good amount. Who's hiring B? All right. You can't match what you're going on. All right, next job.
So the next job is a game show host. Candidate A have killer moves, a British accent, but cannot lie. Candidate B is a calendar model with an evil laugh, but with the gambling addictions. People who are selecting candidate A, please hands up. Raise your hand. Okay. And candidate B, who's picked candidate B? Okay. Most of them pick candidate A.
All right. Finally, ice cream maker. Gotta have one of those, right? Candidate A is insatiable, has a man bun, and is a pyromaniac. Candidate B is experimental, has cavities, and is obsessive compulsive. So who do you want as your ice cream maker? Candidate A, raise your hand. None! Oh, wow. Okay, everyone, who wants candidate B? All right. Was it the cavities or, yeah. All right. So, most government employees find their job through friends and family. And that makes you our best recruiters. So if you or someone you know is interested in a city job, particularly the city of West Hollywood, you can send them to weho.org/jobs. That's one-stop shopping. You can see what we're currently accepting applications for. You can file that interest card for something that's not open now and be notified when it is. And then you're off and running and have a chance here. And also, where we list our jobs is where just about every other public agency in California does as well. So you can not only see West Hollywood, you can move on and look elsewhere.
I know we're supposed to shout out our questions, but you just had such a good rhythm.
Oh, thank you.
So just a quick question. Early on you mentioned that in the state of California there is a property right for civil servants, and I was wondering if you could explain that a little bit. And what's that property right?
It's a property interest in continued employment. And so when it's established by the California Constitution, not all states have it. For example, Texas is a right-to-work state, and it doesn't matter if you're a government employee or not, that you're at will. But here, it's given because you've been tested and appointed through the merit system that there's this it's a construct, right, of the property interest, almost like a privacy interest, but it's a property interest in continued employment, and that it can't be taken away, that you should have an expectation that it continues unless there's cause, just cause, and due process, because it would be the government that would be taking your job away. If you work for the government and your government fires you, it's the government taking your job away, which is considered you have a property interest.
It's like taking away your property. Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sure.
Hey there. A quick question. Does the city, in any part of the hiring process, scrub the applicant's life on social media?
Yes, particularly for our higher level positions, like executives, and when we use a outside search firm for some managers. But yeah, in the background process, we're definitely looking and doing our due diligence to see what we can find. You know, it's not always social media, just that, but like, are there articles or litigation, et cetera? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
At what point does that happen? Does it happen before the names are taken off and forwarded to the hired person, or are they where in the process?
Right. Again, those higher level jobs are where we're looking at that, and so it can be done a little differently, but sometimes at the point of deciding who's going to move on to interview, we kind of can do a quick check to see what's out there, any major red flags, but then a deeper dive once we're like have a conditional job offer. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is there any AI involved with like the, getting to the pool of applications that are actually reviewed?
We wish, not yet. No.
Okay. The answer is no.
4,207 applications. No AI.
Yeah.
No
and
AI.
Lisa mentioned we read every single one of them, but we have a technique of how we view them first, so our eyes just don't get tired and blur. On a lot of our job application, we have supplemental questions. We ask applicants, their direct experience of the job, and so a lot of times we first glance just to focus on how they answer the supplemental questions before we look into other parts. That doesn't mean that we're not going to look at the whole application fully, but usually the first glance is the supplemental questions.
Yeah, so no AI on our part in screening. Just to talk about AI for a second, we do those 2 rounds of interviews, and the first round tends to be virtual, right, through Zoom. And we can tell, and we brief our panelists to kind of recognize certain things when people are using AI to answer questions in the interview. And so, that's a whole new thing of sort of looking out for that, and then what are we going to do with it, so. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I actually seen candidates have their eyeballs like going left and right the entire time during an interview, and so they did a good job hiding that.
I have a question about the full-time positions having this sort of property right, and that's a big deal. So I'm curious if there are probationary periods where that is easier to sort of define if someone moves on to being a permanent employee, since that is quite an investment.
Yes, it is. And we say you own them after probation. So yes, employees do serve a probationary period, and we establish it by classification, sometimes by MOU. And every managers have to serve, if they're hired from the outside, have to serve a probation of 12 months. If you promote from within to a manager, your probation is 6 months, and the probation for everyone else below manager is 6 months. So it's really important, and that's where HR is nudging supervisors about, hey, your 3-month eval check-in time, your 6-month probationary eval is due next month. So we don't want surprise surprises on that last day and et cetera, if it's not working out.
And in regards to the 150 classifications, are you guys responsible for developing all of those classifications?
Yes.
So you can't borrow them from other agencies or anything?
Oh, sure. We aren't going to create the wheel from scratch. We're going to look at agencies we know where the job is similar, kind of take that and then rework it or put it in our format. Yeah.
If someone is promoted in-house and they don't pass the 6-month probationary period, do they have the option of going back to their previous position?
Yes, they're considered on protective leave while they're on probation, and so they still have that interest in the prior position, so they come back. If we filled that one, though, it gets interesting. But yes, they still have that.
I'm looking to find out where we can find information on diversity and inclusion statistics in general without going over PII or even like Resity, how many employees live in our city?
So for the community, Janet, do you know where our the community gender ethnic breakdown is? Do we have that on or is it just this?
Don't believe it's on the website. I'd have to double check, but we can get that for you.
Okay. And is there, I know we're a general law city, so we're restricted as far as, residency requirements, but do we have a radius or specific distance requirements in West Hollywood?
No, for employment, that's unlawful in California.
Well, just for general city?
For all, public employers can't have a residency requirement.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. The city of Los Angeles has firefighters who commute from Utah and other places, yes. So,
And then when it comes to employee satisfaction surveys, is there data available out there? I saw some press things that maybe the union did a survey and it wasn't the city-sponsored survey, and so I'm a little confused there.
Wow, you're really tracking things there. Yes, our largest bargaining unit, WeHome, did a survey about a year ago now. They hired a firm to do the survey, and it was similar to one they had done 5 years or so before. And at its core, the survey was really an engagement survey. And it's not publicly available. Again, the city didn't do it. But it was, and it didn't cover the whole workforce. A good chunk of it. And so, we've taken that information, kind of working on it. And there was another culture survey that the city did that went to all employees. That one I don't believe is public, it was similar results, slightly different angle with a culture versus engagement. But
why don't we make them public?
I don't know that it was that wasn't given to us. Like the survey was administered by a third party. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Hi, I've just always been really curious about how people get into HR. What did you guys study in college? Is it psychology? Is it business? And then how did you just find yourselves in HR?
You want to go first?
I stumbled up into it. So my college background, I'm a sociology and admin major and business major. So I thought I was going to marketing, and I got into the workforce, and I decided that I shouldn't be knocking doors trying to sell things. So found a job, and I'm supposed to be in customer service. And then there was a vacancy in HR, and they just say, hey, do you want to try this? And so I said yes, and they kind of kept the foundation, and I worked a lot on benefits and employee training. So, and then later on, I continue my education or getting classes, so to support my career. And in public sector HR, I also applied the job like everybody else. And it took me a long time to get into the public sector. And so I kind of do a lot of trial and error, learn about how to interview in the public sector, which is very different than the private sector. So I kind of, do my research and do some trial and error.
I would venture a generalization that very rarely does anyone seek out being in HR. We just find our ways there. In undergrad, I studied cultural anthropology and wanted to be an ethnographic filmmaker. But then there was this part-time job 3 blocks away at the personnel department. And, they tell me about, management assistant, once you get your degree, and I'll do it for 2 years. That's what a lot of public employees say. I'm just here for a little while, and then, 25 years later. And so I fell in with HR. I loved it because it was the people, it was the systems, it was fascinating. Once you're there, you're like, oh. And then I went to law school at night and became a lawyer as well. And even at that point, I wasn't sure I wanted to stay in the public sector or stay in HR. But again, the jobs I had during that time, the assignments where I was actually applying the law, and I was like, okay, I'm in it. I'm in it for the full 30.
Thank you.
Quiet group.
Thanks. This is a little bit of an abstract question, but I work in the non-profit sector where there's typically quite a high turnover of staff. And I was just wondering, is that something that you notice in your line of work, or is it that people kind of stick and stay and there is a pretty good retention? But again, that's all relative to other, sectors and organizations and things.
Yeah, we have a new law in California that requires public employers to report on vacancy status as well as turnover rates. And so we have pretty low turnover rates. And so that's something we look at. That's also a sign of health of the organization and the culture as well. And so, sometimes we'll see it in little pockets maybe with something. It's like, okay, what's going on there? But overall, very low. Mm-hmm.
We have a lot of promotions within the city also that create a lot of movement. So once you promote somebody, the previous vacancy become available. And so we have a lot of postings up and also promotional postings up. So over the last, I would say since July, we filled about 25 positions in 3 months. So it was, a really quick process for civil service recruitment.
Is he undertake a lot of the, I don't know what's going on. Okay. You undertake a lot of the supervision over all the employees and everything. Who supervises you guys? Like if something you guys aren't doing right.
Jack. Sorry, didn't mean to cut you off.
No, so it's like, does the city council get involved in that? Is it the city manager? Is it just someone internally that's looking over your work? Who is kind of keeping tabs on that?
It depends on the work and kind of what we're doing. When we conduct an investigation and write an investigative report, like if it's discrimination, harassment allegation, we have a policy that dictates the process for that, where the draft report goes to the city manager and the city attorney before it's finalized. And then, of course, we're reviewing it internally before that final draft. And then when we go and negotiate and, come up with new proposed terms and conditions, a new MOU, that has to go to council and council has to approve that. So it just kind of depends on where it is. Mm-hmm. And then also a lot of the things we do, there are external enforcement agencies, state and federal, where people can file complaints or et cetera. And then, so that serves as like that external check on the city as a whole.
are there any examples where you have to recuse yourself from something, or you're generally governing everything?
Oh, for sure. If you have a relationship with someone in the city, which is totally appropriate, right? But like, I'm not going to assign that person to investigate their spouse or their cousin or what, that kind of thing. And then we sort of set up internal firewalls of like, okay, you can't be involved in this, et cetera, Currently, we're looking for a new city manager. Our current city manager is retiring at the end of this year. And I'm the only one in this room who knows about that process. Myself and the city attorney are assisting the city council with that. So again, just kind of depends on where it is, but we're always looking out to protect the process, whatever the process is, protect the integrity of it, so that the result can be trusted and valid.
And final question, what does your team consist of? Like, how many employees? Like, is it just you three that are kind of in the HR department, or is there more of you?
HR is a division here, and in total we are 11, but 4 of those aren't doing core HR. So there's really 7 of us, and then our director for support. So 7 employees really doing the core HR for the 278 full-time employees, plus the other 100 and so temporary. Thanks.
I will add to the question that came up about retention. I think amongst the 7 employees, we probably have 80 years combined, right? Jader?
26, right?
26. Jackie, 17. 11, almost 18, 2.5.
6.5.
6. Yasmin?
6.
So.
Yes, we have an attractive package, so a lot of, biased, but a lot of other city comes and apply for West Hollywood, and this is kind of the creme of a lot of agency wants to come. So,
for transparency, I'm a temporary employee in the aquatics department, and I have a question about the in-house opportunities that we see coming in our emails. Is there a specific rule about why they're only available for regular status employees? Is that like a collective bargaining thing?
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly. Look, you learned, yes. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. You've been great this evening. Thank you.
Thank you.